The Buffalo Bills held a walkthrough today on Christmas Eve as they do get ready to host Philadelphia Sunday, 4:25. But today, the difference is we do have an official injury report, and 7 players did not partake today. Joey Bosa, Daquan Jones, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Jordan Phillips, Jordan Poyer, and Matt Prater. Then we had some players who were limited, including Josh Allen, who did not practice yesterday, limited today, along with Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, and Shaq Thompson. And the Barnes Firm Injury Report, it is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Injured for help, call 1-800-8-MILLION. Stay tuned. Sal Capacio is going to join the show later today at 5 p.m. for more on the Bills. We will have football action, though, this week. 3 games tomorrow for Christmas. At 1 p.m., Washington hosts Dallas over on Netflix. Josh Johnson is going to get the start at quarterback for the Commanders. Also on Netflix, the Vikings hosting the Lions. That game will kick off at 4:30. J.J. McCarthy is out due to a hairline fracture, so it's going to be Max Brosmer for Minnesota. Then at 8:15 over on Amazon Prime, Denver is at the Chiefs, and staying with the pattern of backup quarterbacks playing tomorrow, the Chiefs do one better. It is a third-string quarterback, Chris Oladokun, expected to get the start with Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew both down, though the Chiefs did sign Shane Buechele off the Bills' practice squad. To the Sabres, they do get their 5th win in a row. For more on that win over Ottawa, Paul Hamilton does have a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. And now the Sabres and the NHL are off until Saturday, though the Sabres are right back at it on Saturday when they play host to Boston, looking now for 8 wins in a row. But we do also have some sports action tonight. It is over in college football, the Hawaii Bowl. Hawaii hosts Cal. That game just after 8 o'clock over on ESPN. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
No, I want an official red undercover knife shoot you in a jet with my leg rifle.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Okay, people, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Santa's coming to town.
Santa! Oh, my God! Santa here? I know him.
Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
I have started my Christmas Eve work shift by futilely trying to spell Oladokun. 0 for 3 before I just went to the Chiefs page. Merry Christmas. Hi. Happy holidays. Bulldog is off for a while. I am dying for some sort of bet online list of quarterbacks and odds for their starting week 1 for somebody next year. I'm dying for this. Not whole season, half the season, maybe longer. I keep bringing this up with Bulldog, like, all right, what about this team? And for a while, okay, I'll admit it, I don't think it was crazy. Jacksonville was a team whose quarterback situation going into next year was perhaps unclear, like just not a given. Maybe that's cleared up. I think it probably is. Pretty sure no matter what happens from here to the end, Trevor Lawrence, under contract already, big contract, we'll start there. Bo Nix is another one. But then they went and won 11 games in a row. So, okay, there goes that. Pretty sure he's going to, and he's still young. Well, he's sort of young. He's old for his experience level, but he's still young as a NFL quarterback. So he's definitely there. But, then new contenders come and go. Philadelphia for a minute might have appeared to be a team, and they could still be one, I think. I have a friend in Philadelphia, Dave Tripoli, who will join me in an hour to analyze this game Sunday and the Eagles. I think they could still be one. They might be restless. There's always a lot of drama with Philadelphia. Is that a team that could draft somebody? Probably not start them over Jalen Hurts immediately, so I wouldn't bet on that. Maybe Baltimore is one. There's a report today about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson being at a crossroads. And you've got other quarterbacks in the league, Tua in Miami, Kyler Murray in Arizona, who have big contracts, but their teams possibly are just done with them. There could be a lot of movement. I do Matthew Collar's Purple Insider podcast every Wednesday morning, and, the Vikings are nowhere. What would you do? We've been through times like these with the Bills over the years, not lately, but what would you do if you were Minnesota? Guess it depends on what your opinion of J.J. McCarthy so far is. Nobody's that impressed. The range would be between give it time and get out. And they can't just go get anybody they want. They did this with Sam Darnold, and that didn't seem too exciting. Darnold would probably start, or doesn't have to. McCarthy was a high draft pick. Let's see how preseason looks. And if McCarthy doesn't look ready, we'll play Sam Darnold. What happened was McCarthy tore a knee ligament in preseason, in a game he looked great in, by the way. That doesn't matter. Out for the year, Darnold plays, they go 14-3. But they have McCarthy. It went inside out. They have McCarthy, and Darnold kind of bombed at the end of the season, so I think it was pretty easy for them, at least in terms of from the outside, to cut bait on Darnold, who goes to Seattle. One of my biggest misses in fantasy football this year was, I guess I'd have to say, pretty much assuming that Seattle's offense would not function. Everybody who knows offensive line stuff said, I think everybody I heard, said Seattle's offensive line is likely to be terrible. What does Sam Darnold look like on a team like that? Bad. Not deep at receiver. Cooper Kupp, are you kidding? All right, maybe JSN. What happened? They're the 1 seed with 2 games to go in the NFC, and Darnold has been excellent. If I got this list, I don't know. Maybe I should just make one and handicap it. Isn't that the way to make money in sports betting? To take the bets? I mean, probably not legal. Probably. Listen to me. What am I going to do? Open a casino? 26 goals. If there were a list, how many names deep to start week 1 for some team in the NFL next year would you find the name Mitchell Trubisky? I don't think it's crazy. Oladokun, Oladokun, by the way. That's who's going to start for the Chiefs on Christmas night. Can we skip Christmas football? 3 games on streaming services, none of which is really interesting at all or has any real playoff meaning. Detroit, I guess. I mean, Denver for seeding. You got a guy in Trubisky. Just remember your options before you laugh. Former top 3 pick has started. I'll be his attorney. Multiple playoff games. Only 31. I don't know. It's not great. But a lot of teams are. What's Miami going to do? There's so many teams like this. Teams like the Raiders can just draft somebody and cross their fingers. That's what'll happen there. The teams at the very bottom of the standings. Bulldog's big into Cam Ward, and every week it got tougher for him to defend that. But there's just like no other way to go, I think, if you're Tennessee, than to keep trying with Cam Ward. What is Brissett? Is Jacoby Brissett in a position where somebody will really pay him? What if it's you? Again, this isn't us anymore. Maybe it will be again someday, but this is not our lives. It's been our lives where you're 5-9 and your quarterback is bad and everybody knows it. And what are you going to do about it? Like, who do you want? Almost like talking about players in the draft. Who do you want? Well, there'd be that too. Would Brissett be somebody? I mean, a journeyman. He started for so many teams. He had a little bit of a hot streak this year. Guess what? They lost almost every game. Now they're losing to the Falcons at home. Kirk Cousins is another one. Like, is he starting for somebody? All right, thanks for indulging me. This is really like a big area where my head is at. I don't know how to get any sort of action on it, but there's going to be there'll be a lot of, more than the usual amount. There's always some quarterback movement, intrigue. There'll be a lot of it. I mean, I think some of these guys with big contracts could be moved. They could trade Tua for Kyler, just try new things. I don't know. But it's going to be crazy. Maybe the idea of going with Mitchell Trubisky is crazy, but, you do that with someone young and just see what you get. Well, I've been off since Friday, I guess. That was my last day here. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I was off. Bulldog will be off for more than a week. He'll come back after the new year. And hopefully he's feeling more well-rested than I am after my last 3 days. I went from home midway through the Bills game to Hobart, where my son was playing in a lacrosse tournament. Then he and I went to Burlington, Vermont, and drove up. I mean, that was a little bit challenging, driving through the night. I mean, it's so dark and narrow that way up, all the way up through Vermont. Fine. Spent Monday morning there, and then with a little bit of Christmas shopping to do and feeling a little bit adventurous. You know, we're up here. What do you want to do the rest of the day? We went to Montreal, which was about an hour and a half, it hasn't moved, about an hour and a half north of Burlington. And so that was fine. We were there a few hours, but busy, long drive on Tuesday. So yesterday, let's get back. The drive from Montreal to Burlington might have been, because it's hard to rank these, so I can't say it was for sure, might have been the hardest drive of my life in snow. Because not only is it really narrow, it's Route 89. Most of it. Once you get through Quebec and onto the highway, it's Route 89. It was no better. It's super narrow. It's super dark. There's no, like, it's just kind of mountains or fields or farms on either side. You really can't see. And while it wasn't snowing that heavily, the way it was, like, maybe this is the wind tunnel effect at the stadium or something, where the wind is just whipping the snow that is falling in kind of like all kinds of different directions, making it really hard to focus on the road. And then you'd get, this is always fun, isn't it? Where you get these huge trucks that just blow by you. And on this is Monday night, so 2 nights ago. In this case, when that would happen, because of the snow on the ground and the way it was whipping around, you would be almost literally blinded. There was no way, no guardrails, no, lit buildings or anything for any kind of perspective. It's just like you in this road. And if there isn't a car in front of you where you can see their taillights, you don't know. I mean, you're just completely unable to see. So it added about, we made it. I felt really fortunate that they didn't close the road and leave us sort of stranded somewhere in the northern Vermont. Who knows what could have happened there. Made it back to our hotel, and we're both like ready to eat. So we go to the hotel restaurant, and I am sitting there. If you're watching, I'm sitting there like this. I'm just completely wiped. Like a drive like that can really take it out of you, the stress that you feel. And as it happens, the next day, so yesterday, we had to drive from Burlington to Toronto, and we did that almost all the way back up to Montreal. It was like an 8-hour thing with bad weather again. So I'm just sort of processing the drive down, and then, Christmas stuff. Everything's kind of like taking over, and I'm just... And the waitress, I'm ready for a cocktail at this point. The waitress comes over, young woman, and I said, I just got to tell you. Now I'm like the dad in the Progressive ads, right? Where I'm just start talking to the waitress, and you know what? The waitress doesn't need to know your name. So we didn't get that far. But I just said, I got to tell somebody, that drive from Montreal down here that I just took was maybe the hardest drive of my life in the snow. And she said immediately, oh, it's not that bad out. And I'm thinking to myself, thank you, young waitress, who hasn't maybe necessarily even been outside. But thank you. And I had to pull rank on her. I just was like, oh, it's not that. Like, you're just telling me I'm wrong. I just lived it, but I'm wrong. I'm not even entitled to believing that it was. You don't know anything about me. You just know that could not have been that hard to drive. She lives in Vermont, and there's probably days where there's tons of snow, and now it's not really snowing that hard, but okay. So I had to say it. I said, I'm sorry to do this to you, to pull rank on you. I live in Buffalo. So sorry if that offends anybody, that I played the it snows in Buffalo a lot sometimes card on this waitress. But, the nerve of telling me that it really wasn't that bad. You weren't in the car. I doubt you drove to work from Montreal. If she had, she would have agreed with me. So, yeah, hopefully Bulldog is kind of taking it easy for the next week. That was the point, by the way, if you missed the beginning. and feels a little bit more well-refreshed than I do today, but that's fine. I don't know anything about what he's been talking about in here for 3 days. I didn't have the app going, and I wasn't paying close attention to what Bulldog was doing. No offense to anyone these last couple of days. But I think there's two interesting things about where we're at with the Bills right now. And there's probably more than that. James Cook leads the NFL in rushing. That's something else. That's kind of awesome and amazing. There are a couple things that I've been thinking about, though, the most. One is thinking about, beating Cleveland like they did. It's really been kind of one narrative all year with them, generalizing a little bit, or maybe more than a little bit. And that is, well, they're not always that impressive. And it's not hard to find concerns. But they're 11-4 now. Just like we're used to for years running, they almost always win. And that's where we're at, which is another season where they look like they're capable of getting there, but they're not perfect. Like, they're not a team. They've had better teams than this, I think. Starting with defense. They've had better teams than this that have, lost ultimately. So it's interesting to me that it has kind of stayed in that lane almost all season, even when they were, all the way to week 1. 41-40. Down big late. Josh Allen annoyed that fans left. Sorry. Some of us has to work in the morning. It's a school night. That hadn't left him as recently as that whatever game it was, Cincinnati, I guess, where he had it on his mind when he walked into the press conference to mention that he was happy the fans didn't abandon the Bills. Imagine if that happened. So all the way back to week 1. Fun, awesome, wow. And then it's the Jets, who they were no match for the Bills in week 2. Miami and New Orleans, home games, going back to before the season started. It's look at this schedule. If you beat the Ravens, it might be a long time before they lose. Bulldog and I even had 17-0 talk here and there and tried to get away with that before getting hit in the head. So Miami and New Orleans are closer games where you're maybe asking the same questions. And really the whole season has been kind of this. They've had a couple of other Pittsburgh, eventually, I guess I want to say, they've had a couple of other really impressive wins, but also some bad losses. And the questions about what they really are have been persistent. And I'm assuming that beating Cleveland 23-20 didn't really change that or help take the stress off this. But, is what it is. This is a point about the talking. And the talking this year has been very consistent, I think, overall. Okay, well, they're live, and who else would you rather be? I don't know. But really, there are concerns. I think that's still true, is it not? 803-0550. Interesting to me how that has really not wavered. Those losses to Atlanta and Miami and Houston had me at everything is wrong. Nothing is working. Can't protect Allen. He's taking a beating. They're getting run right through. Had a little bit of that on the game on Sunday too. At times with the Browns early, Judkins goes out, and that might have meant a lot in the end. But there's still these. Can they get open? Wide receiver receptions, all of it. That's just sort of been the same all season. And here we are, Christmas Eve, and it's still sort of that. It's right there in that lane. I think the most interesting conversation or debate to have right now about them is how to play these two games coming up. The stakes. Is there a range of opinion on this, or is everybody kind of just pedal down? And it's really hard to use injuries, even though we kind of usually do it, as a mechanism for this, because we don't break ties if you want to be more conservative or aggressive, guys who are 50-50 health-wise or whatever the odds would be, if I'm being aggressive because the game is everything to me, then they play. You hear coaches say, oh, if it was a playoff game, they would have played, things like that, or just, the opposite. But you don't know exactly how the player is feeling. You just sort of have to settle for what they tell us. And it's usually not very specific. But you've got this Eagles game on Sunday. I predicted this all year since the schedule came out. The one thing about the schedule that disappointed me the most was that I think the league might have wasted Philadelphia at Buffalo by making it so late. And I think I was right. I think this game, of course, there is still something to play for. There's always seedings. And that's part of the conversation here. I would also like to hear that from you, is how important you think the 5 versus the 6 is, for example. That might have gotten more pronounced this week. The Ravens are almost dead, and Jacksonville looked so good. That could still also be Houston at 3. So I wonder if in the last few days there's been a lot of 5 is way more important than 6 talk, and that's just the first round. But Philadelphia-Buffalo could have been a beauty in the middle of the season, and this is just okay because the Eagles are all set in their, playoff positioning, and the Bills are not all set, but it's pretty likely where this is going to end up. They still need that Patriots loss. That seems kind of hard to imagine, but they still need that to move into a home game or even a bye week. That's still possible, I think, but not likely enough for me to bother figuring out permutations or whatever. So that's where I think we're at, and I wonder if you think the stadium piece in this is relevant to how it gets played. And that's really if we get to next week and the Bills are whatever they are, 5, 6. I mean, if they're live for the AFC East, there's no discussion. If New England loses to the Jets and the Bills beat Philadelphia, maybe even if they have to tie them because of the Baltimore result. If they're tied next week because the Eagles or the Patriots rather have lost to the Jets, then there's no discussion. Of course you're the favorite at that point because it's the Jets at home and the Bills would be massive favorites. They will be anyway, massive favorites in that game. If it matters to them. And that would be it absolutely 100% mattering to them, that scenario. If it isn't that, then what do you want to do? And does the fact that it's the last game there matter to this? Or, probably. Of course, there's the possibility of a home playoff game as a wild card, but that rarely happens. So what do you want to do? Does that matter to you how to play Week 18? The one thing I've said about this is, again, I did this on Purple Insider this morning, which I don't think is out yet. It might be. I doubt it matters to Sean McDermott. I don't think, and it probably shouldn't. Sean McDermott knows that game is the last regular season game ever to be played there. But is he really supposed to change whatever his plan might be for that game based on that? I don't think I'd want him to. Not that I'd necessarily agree with whatever he's going to do, but I don't think I'd want to hear that, well, it was the last game at the stadium, so we thought we would play. Because now we're talking like in preseason terms, where the one thing that can be bad for you is a bad injury. But, where it's at home or it's kids' day or just whatever it is that might make you want to mitigate that. So for me, the stakes are up there as a big conversation about them, even if it is a little bit premature, because we still have this game on Sunday to get to first. The Steelers, the Jaguars, the Chargers, and Texans who meet on Saturday. Lots to talk about here. Denver loses, New England rallies to win. What are you seeing in the AFC? 803-0550 for your calls. I mentioned Dave Tripoli coming up. We'll talk Eagles with him. Sal Capacio will join me at 5. Hope to hear from you next. Merry Christmas. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off. This is WGR.
The way that I put it in terms is to win the lottery, you got to buy a ticket. To win a Super Bowl, you got to make the playoffs. Getting into the playoffs is our ticket. What we do with that is up to us and going out there and executing each and every week. And you want to go into the playoffs playing as well as you can. And obviously there's still a chance for us to win the division. And obviously we need help doing that. But at the end of the day, we want to come out and take it one game at a time and still have that backs against the wall mentality and try to play our best football going into it.
One game at a time, backs against the wall. Did he miss one? Josh Allen and the Bills home to Philadelphia and then the Jets, final 2 weeks of the season. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I'm Mike Schopp. Pleased to be with you today. Actually, the work is, this is what always happens. The adrenaline sort of kicks in and that I was feeling an hour ago has subsided. It'll come back, though. Hopefully it waits until, 7 or later. Or, never. Bills in red Sunday. Who wanted that? Whoever wanted the Bills in red? I want to make sure I say here that I appreciate teams when they're, the variety in uniforms. I think it's okay. I think it's fun, even. So I'm not somebody that thinks every team has to wear their, quote, usuals every game. I like the variety. I just don't know about red. I mean, okay. Well, what's it going to be? Like purple? I guess red, it has to be the second choice. Anyway, that's the plan. And then red helmets for the Jet game. 803-0550. I mentioned already, I think the most interesting Bills stuff right now is the stakes and how to play it these 2 weeks. You can't rest guys yet with there still being a chance at first place. And even if both the Bills and Patriots win this week, that would still be in play for next week with the Patriots hosting Miami. But man, what an upset it would be if New England lost either of these 2 games. And if they don't, then maybe you ended up sort of sprinting to the wire futilely, which, that's not ideal. Then you're going on the road in that case. Let's go to Rick here. Hi, Rick.
Hey, how's it going, show? I just wanted to call and look, man, I've been listening to you for years and your insights and asking the questions that a lot of us are thinking but don't think anybody in the media is going to ask. I just want to let you know that that's appreciated. As far as my point, it kind of in that same theme. I mean, when Bean got on with Jeremy and kind of ripped into him, said, hey, we don't need a number one receiver. We average 30 points a game. If we don't make it to the Super Bowl, it's obvious that the glaring miss in the offense is obviously a number one receiver or go-to receiver. I mean, most of the catches are being made by the tight ends, occasionally the running backs, and Shakir, and that's probably 95% of the catches that occur. But, if we don't make it to the Super Bowl, my hope is that somebody holds him accountable. And
meaning what?
I hope that coming on and actually answering the questions as far as why did he feel that he couldn't give up the number one draft pick?
He's already answered that, though. Like there's no mystery about how Bean has felt, right? I mean, we know those answers. Don't you think?
All right, I'm not aware of why he didn't want to give up a 2026, but he'd give up a 2027 for Waddle. Do we know the answer to that?
Because he didn't think it was worth it.
Okay. Well,
and that seems like that would
I disagree with him, but
yeah, I mean, people use these. Thanks, Rick. People use these terms like hold him accountable. You got to tell me what that actually means. You want him to answer questions? He does answer questions, and then we don't like the answers. And is that holding him accountable? I guess. I don't know. What we do in here every day is pretty much talk about that. I'm asking like how people want to play Week 18, and the call I get is fine. It's just about what if we lose the Super Bowl. And I choose not to be sort of in that mindset right now. I don't want to, especially on the air, right, where I'm representing to you kind of like the caller gave me a compliment for. Thank you. Like sort of putting things in maybe the way you want them put. I don't want to sit around talking about what if they lose. And if hold him accountable means fire him, say it. Or you just want him to come back on the radio station or do an interview with somebody and what? Capitulate. Yeah, I was wrong. Bean through the years has been willing to admit misses, and he's done that a lot. You have to recognize that. And with the benefit of a year going by, one that started with his angrily defending himself, okay, we do that in life, his decisions, maybe when it's over, it'll be right back to, well, what do you think now? That's just, it's always in motion, these things. I just don't want to frame my side of these conversations necessarily, especially on Christmas Eve, with like, hey guys, what if they lose? So what if they lose? I don't know. It doesn't seem like fun to me or, really the right time for it. I'm trying to figure out what to do these 2 weeks. And then who do I want to play? And then maybe if you insist on what if they lose talk, maybe they have a playoff game, whether it's not going to be against Kansas City this time, we know that, or Cincinnati, but it's somebody, and they lose. If you this is what I have to do to get any kind of reaction. If they lose 32-29, then what do we do about it? Well, they didn't have the receivers, or they couldn't get stops, which is how I take last year's playoff loss as more important. And really all of them, I would say. For the most part. Why have they lost? Bulldog and I have been back and forth on this for years now, but he's not here. So why have they lost when they've lost in the playoffs? Because they can't get off the field. And sure, you could have the ball with a minute left, having already scored 29 points, and get stopped at midfield on 4th and 1. Like, those guys are good too. To me, that's less of an indictment on what they're not on offense than what they're not on defense. And injuries have been a part of that, but not all of it. And this year will be especially interesting for this because you don't have Mahomes and you don't have Burrow and you probably won't have Lamar Jackson. I don't know what that is. Again, like there's always the drama with him, but you're talking about Trevor Lawrence or Bo Nix or Drake May, and it will look worse to people who have been scrutinizing this team this whole era if they can't get it done defensively against those guys or CJ Stroud even. The Houston game was this year is Stroud didn't play, by the way. Davis Mills is best remembered for what? You might have a different opinion of it. Mine is that they could not protect Allen. Like they just had it was such a fire drill on offense that night. And that game is a game where I would start with their offense and what they lack. And if they lose a playoff game like that, then I think it should be a different conversation than the ones I've been inclined to have after their other playoff losses. Thank you, Rick. Happy holidays to you. 803-0550 is the number. Indianapolis is almost dead. They're not in this conversation. They're not 100% out. They're like 95%. Man, I was talking about wishing I could find odds on quarterbacks and landing spots for next year and all of that. At 8-2, I planted my flag that Indianapolis would not win another game, and I'm 2 away. I never found, I'm not Paniatovich, like I never tried hard enough or found any sort of a betting line on 0-7 down the stretch. I wish I had. What would that have been worth? But I bet against them in every other way, any way that I could. Not winning the AFC South, not making the playoffs. I think the win total was 11.5, best I could do, and took that. So I wish I had the thing with the higher payout. Wouldn't you know? I'd want that. Why wouldn't I? 803-0550 for your calls. Most of you who play fantasy football are not going to be in like the big tournament, high stakes stuff. You're talking about your home leagues and it's championship week. I have a friend who is in the big tournaments and he has a shot at it, and he's got Jonathan Taylor. I shouldn't even bring this up, but it might apply to somebody out there. He's got Jonathan Taylor, but so do a couple of teams ahead of him. And he called me and he's like, would you bench Taylor because you're trying to be different than the teams you're playing against? And we talked about the Colts and their chances, and they're not great. But I doubt, if they're not zero, and they're not zero for Indianapolis, I got to think they're going to go after it and hope for the best. Let's go to Mike here. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Hey, just bringing back the previous caller about asking, and it's kind of the questions we get all the time, when are we going to hold these guys accountable? And you kind of, answered some of it. But just on the devil's advocate side of it, when you guys ask a question and Bean comes back and says, hey, I didn't do the draft picks and all that because I didn't think it was the right deal. Well, that's a great question that you asked them and an okay answer, but you got 80,000 fans that are saying the same things. So holding them accountable to me would be, hey, yeah, you didn't think it was the right move, but it didn't seem to work out. What were your thoughts in making that decision? Why did you come to that decision?
He does get those questions.
But like what you had said was, we do ask him, and he said he's told us already. He didn't think it was the right move.
Well, the next time he's on the air, he will get the exact question you're asking. Like he does.
No. I understand, but I don't think you understand what I'm saying is when they come up with the answer, and then maybe somebody reiterates and says, "Hey, wait a minute, we're trying to find out why you made the decisions because that's what the people want to know about."
Yes, he is asked why. Not always. I'm not here to speak for everybody who's ever talked to him.
No. I don't think that you are. I'm just talking maybe to lengthen what he had said. That maybe we just ask those tougher questions at the end.
Okay.
Nothing against you guys.
Well, you're kind of is like you want him to get pressed on why, and he does. He has spoken to the wide receiver question countless times for years. When he was done, you know this, right? Like when he was done with the morning show that day, he went to Tyler Dunn. He went to McAfee. I mean, it was a tour.
Yes, he was.
He's asked these questions every different way there is. His position is, I didn't think I needed to do it. And if that's not good enough for the person talking to him or for the fans, then it's not. I mean, that's just the end of it.
I understand that, but that doesn't mean that, it's just like in the world of journalism, you ask a question and then somebody's just going to give you the answer, but it doesn't mean that they didn't, give you the political answer. So that's what I was just saying. Nothing against you guys. Your questions are fantastic. I love you guys. But just saying, I wonder if maybe, even though the tough questions that you asked, maybe it's a little tougher just to, I'm just saying that as a fan.
You're saying the questions are not tough enough.
No, I think the questions are right.
You totally are.
No, the questions, I think, maybe I'm not putting myself across. Some people, the questions get answered, but in your mind, you know that it's not the right one, so you dig a little deeper.
It's not a question of right and wrong. It's a question of whether he's being honest. That's what
I don't think he is.
Well, then that's the bottom line then, right? If you don't think he's being honest, which sometimes lots of people in sports will choose not to be for pretty understandable reasons, then that's your objection, it sounds like. But don't say, you guys are the best, you ask all the tough questions, but what's your point? Your point, Christmas Eve. Does anybody care about this season that's still left? Your point is, you don't like his answer. And I don't know what you want. You want 20 lashes? You want something more? I guess you want something more. And I don't know. I mean, there are lots of different people who are asking these questions. I haven't talked to Brandon Bean since a charity event like maybe 2 years ago. So it's not me. I don't know. Just, I think generally in these kinds of things, you can really only go so far. If they don't want to tell you something, then they're not gonna. If you don't agree with them, then that's that. There's only so much you can ever expect to get. And these interviews are not interminable. Sometimes they can feel like it, but you also only get so much time. So I don't know. I have no issue if this is really what is on people's minds today. I have no issue with the effort Brandon Bean makes to get his point across in the media. He's not doing interviews every week. He does lots of it. He does more media than any Bills GM I can remember. How about that? And if you don't agree with them, then you don't. But that's not necessarily his fault. Dave Tripoli on the Eagles coming up at 4. Thanks, Mike. Mike Schopp here. Merry Christmas. Bulldog is off through New Year's. This is WGR. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off through New Year's. 803-0550 to reach me. I'm a little bit taken aback by how that's gone so far, but you never know. You can't call, as they say in as you learn the trade, you can't call yourself. But I don't, blame anybody for wanting to have those conversations. It just doesn't seem like it isn't where my head is on this season with two regular season games to go, and then what should be a wild and fun playoff picture when it becomes clear at the end. I wasn't here yesterday, but the reverse AFC power rankings sponsored by Empire Electric are up on the board. Jacksonville is one. Is that the consensus? Apparently it was in the room yesterday that the Jacksonville Jaguars are the best team in the AFC. I don't really want to scoff at it. When I last talked, Ross was probably on yesterday. When I last talked to Ross Tucker last week with Bulldog here, we ended up talking about their color scheme. And I guess I want to say maybe there can be an element of, what do I want to say? Maybe that can be a little bit relevant, what you are, what you wear. When teams go play the Steelers, no matter how bad they look, a part of me is still, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got to respect that, black and gold and 6 Super Bowls, and you got to respect that. And when it's the Jaguars, it's like the total opposite. Not that you have to think this way, but for me, the same team, the Bills, go to play the Jaguars, like, oh, okay, that should be all right. Obviously, maybe isn't the word. Maybe you don't know this, but the Bills have had a lot of problems with the Jaguars in big spots over the years. Not last year. That was week 3, and the Bills blasted them in a game here. But playoff losses to Jacksonville, the famous 9-6 game, the game in London where the Bills got badly beat up and lost to the Jaguars, kind of setting the tone for a difficult season that year when Dorsey ends up getting fired, and that was just one game of that, but that was Jacksonville. So, interesting. And they put the Bills, too. Bills-Jags, which would be a first-round meeting if the season were already over. 1-2 in the AFC power rankings. Not New England. And I understand not Denver, after how Jacksonville kind of took them out back in Denver last week. What a great win for the Jags. One of the few picks I got right last week was that Jacksonville win. So I wanted to do this because they're good and they're a little bit of a relative unknown to me. We brought Mike Dempsey on Friday's show from Jacksonville, even though the Bills were playing the Browns. And normally that's a spot for like somebody who covers the Browns, the week's opponent. But I wanted to talk to Mike to see like what are we really dealing with the Jags. There's a lot that seems to be going well. In today's case, it's the Eagles. That's Sunday's Bills opponent. And I'll bring on Dave Tripoli, a guy I know through the FFPC, through fantasy, but big Eagles fan. I know he'll have some interesting, maybe even controversial takes on that team. I'm just guessing that. I don't know how he feels, but we're going to find out. That'll be after sports. Again, thanks for listening. Happy holidays. Mike Schopp here, WGR.
Just a walkthrough practice today for the Bills as we head into the holiday break. Christmas is tomorrow. The Bills, though, will be hosting the Eagles on Sunday at 4:25, and 7 players did not practice today. Joey Bosa, Daquan Jones, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Jordan Phillips, Jordan Poyer, and Matt Prater. Josh Allen, Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, and Shaq Thompson were all limited today. That is an upgrade for Allen and the rest. And the Barnes Firm Injury Report, it is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Injured for help, call 1-800-8-MILLION. Do stay tuned. We'll get more on the Bills later today at 5 when Sal Capacio joins the show. Around the rest of the league, 3 games tomorrow for Christmas, and backup quarterbacks seem to be the name of the game. At 1 p.m., Washington hosts Dallas. That game's over on Netflix. Josh Johnson gets to start at quarterback for the Commanders. Also on Netflix, Vikings hosting the Lions. That game will kick off at 4:30. J.J. McCarthy is out due to a hairline fracture. It's going to be Max Brosmer for Minnesota. Then at 8:15 over on Amazon Prime, Denver is at the Chiefs. And, of course, staying with the pattern, another backup quarterback, though for the Chiefs, it is actually their third-string quarterback. Chris Oladokun is expected to get the start with Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew both down with knee injuries, though the Chiefs did sign Shane Buechele off the Bills' practice squad. To the Sabres, they do in fact get their 7th win in a row. For more on that win over Ottawa, Paul Hamilton does have a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. And now the Sabres and the NHL as a whole are off until Saturday, though on Saturday, the Buffalo Sabres will be playing host to Boston as they look for their 8th win in a row. And then there is some sports action tonight. It is courtesy of college football, the Hawaii Bowl. Hawaii hosts Cal just after 8. That game will be over on ESPN. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
Monday, Tuesday, hump day is halfway. It's Mike Schopp.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
And the Bulldog.
Hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
On WGR.
Hump day!
Sports Radio 550.
What am I supposed to be watching right now? Yes, I know, I'm working. Michael, you're not supposed to be watching TV while you're working. What am I supposed to have on in this room right now? Me, there are way too many bowl games and they're stupid and meaningless. Also me, we're not late enough in the year where there'd be a bowl game on Christmas Eve at like the middle of the day. Like we're just, no? Was that cool, that little manner of speaking I just did? When I said me and then also me? No? What if I throw a 6-7 in? Does that help? No. See, I'm 54. And if it did happen that whatever way I was talking was like with the times, trendy, then I'm still an idiot. Because why at my age would I want to sound like that? I mean, really, the only zone for me is like the dad joke zone. I just got to own that. I got to starting go back to starting tweets with capital letters and using periods and just, hey, I'm not trying to make like I'm 30 or something because I'm never going to be 30. I could use a bowl game right now. I'm watching something about Scotty Scheffler. I'm watching old golf. It's that or Mets yearbook. I'm going to go ahead and pass on Mets yearbook. So excited to have Dave Tripoli on the West Her Hotline. I know Dave through the FFPC for fantasy players, especially serious ones who have been running hot this year. This is a huge week in the tournaments. Dave, I'm hoping you're one of those people right now.
We got some chances at some big money. The big payback and another 5K league. We're leading the pack going into the final week, so very, very exciting time for that. Hopefully everything runs good for this final week. It's going to be an interesting week with a lot of injuries.
Do you think there's more of that this year, or does it just always seem like that? When you get to week 17, all these quarterback injuries, Brock Bowers goes away today, Rashee Rice for what it's worth also. Is it normal that we get to Christmas Eve and just be like, oh, it's a mess, or is it maybe worse this year?
I think this year it's a little bit worse than other years. If it seems like teams are maybe getting a little smarter, and if guys are like kind of questionable, they're just like, all right, sit this guy out. Rashee Rice being an example, he's probably clearing a concussion protocol. But to be honest with you, Mike, I don't even know who's throwing the ball to him this week. So why would he not be out there playing? He's clearly their best receiver, probably their best offensive player by a good margin. Why would he need to be out there for the next 2 weeks? So why not just put him on IR? Protect yourself and keep it going, because why are you going to put him out there and risk something serious?
Right. And there's also the draft pick incentive. I'm not sure it applies to a team with as many wins as the Chiefs have at 6, but what is like last year, Dave, is there are so many bad teams. One of my favorite receivers in the league is Garrett Wilson. And because Garrett Wilson was sort of a version of Justin Jefferson in how as bad as their quarterbacks were, he would still put up 1,000 yards and like spectacular catches. But man, all year you knew you were just sort of right on the wire with Fields and even Tyrod Taylor. They're going nowhere, and it's Thanksgiving. You just know that it's over. You're not getting Garrett Wilson back.
The
So
scary part about Garrett Wilson is week 1, you thought you literally were gold.
Yeah.
They had that big first week, him and Justin Fields. Obviously, everybody was talking about him. And then disaster all over the rest of the season. I mean, he's probably been able to come back, I guess. But why on earth would Garrett Wilson want to come back on that dreck of a franchise? So from that perspective, you see picks like that with Garrett Wilson. Were they bad picks? I don't personally think so, because like you said, Garrett Wilson's a great talent. In my opinion, one of the best receivers in football. He just has a terrible draw in New York and with the quarterback position.
we'll get to the Eagles, of course, but how do you look at the Raiders season, which is at least as bad, with Genty and Bowers, mostly out there now? Bowers is going to miss the last 2 games. Were those picks that were defensible at the time, or did we fall for something?
I think with Bowers, you might have fell for a little bit of something early on. Genty, I don't think is a bad pick. I mean, I just expected Pete Carroll to have a half a brain and actually use him a lot more, using the passing game, which you're seeing a little bit more lately. Early in the season, it was like he wasn't getting as many carries as – if you're drafting a guy that high in the draft, he should be getting 20-plus carries every game. If not, why are you taking him? It makes no sense, because everybody knows running backs' shelf life is extremely small. So somebody like Genty, you're spending that capital on him. You're building up the team around him. Early in the season, he really didn't get the work that he was supposed to. So you're starting to see a little bit of Ashton Genty, really the talent that, everybody saw. It just is a shame that he's on such a very, very, very suspect franchise with no quarterback plan, no coaching, system right now. Chip Kelly fired, Pete Carroll should be fired. Outside of Max Crosby, Brock Bowers, and Ashton Genty, there's not a lot on that team to be excited about.
With Dave Tripoli, maybe we'll get to some more fantasy angles here before our time is done here, Dave. But let's talk about your Philadelphia Eagles. What has it felt like from the inside, so to speak, with the Eagles this year? There's always all this noise, but there's been that in years like last year where they won it all and everybody shook hands and said that's the best team in the league, no question. How is this year different, if at all?
Different, man, that's a tough word. I think it's something like butterflies in your stomach. Early in the season, didn't really look great. A couple years ago, it was the same situation. They won a lot of games early, and then disaster struck, and they, backed their way into the playoffs and got bounced early by Tampa Bay. I think this team's a little different. Obviously, the talent's there. We all know about the talent. Offensively, they have looked good recently, starting to really get Barkley the ball, starting to run the ball a little bit better, utilize him more. It looks like he's a little refreshed. He started the season off maybe a little suspect, but the offensive line just hasn't been great this year, and that's the strength of the team. So with Brown, with Goddard, with Devonta Smith, obviously Hurts. If the offensive coordinator continues to adapt, which it looks like he's doing a little bit, and I've been very outspoken to get rid of him midseason, day one when that Cowboys disaster early in the season, and later in the season when they blew that 21-0 lead, everybody in Philly wants him gone. Last couple games, he's been better. The only question with him is, was it just against bad teams?
Yep.
Obviously the Raiders and the Commanders. You're going to see what the offensive system is made of, if it's really improving this week in Buffalo. Because going to Buffalo, not an easy place to play. Buffalo still has a lot to play for. The Eagles don't have that much to play for. It would take something catastrophic with the Bears. for them to move up a seed. So from that perspective, I think the Eagles are continue to progress as the season goes on. It looks like A.J. Brown's happy, Devonta Smith's happy, Barkley's happy, Hurts looks like he's smiling more. You're seeing these Christmas pictures come out and these after-game pictures. There's a lot of positive vibes in Philly right now because in that 3-game losing streak, there was a lot of ugly things being said on sports radio.
And I know you would know that, which I like about you, Dave. So I complained when the schedule came out that this game is so late, feeling like they might have wasted Philadelphia Buffalo. Now, there are lots of great matchups, and I think I was right. Here, you talk about where the Eagles are. I'm not sure how important it is to them to move up to 2 if they even can do it. And the Bills are kind of locked in, almost locked in as a wild card. As you may know, they need the Patriots to lose another game versus either the Jets or the Dolphins, right? So they're looking at a wild card probably here. There are higher stakes out there, maybe not this week. Well, there probably are. But this could have been a much bigger game like in November.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. 1,000. You see the schedule come out sometimes, and you just look at some of these matchups, and you're like, why not put the Eagles, Buffalo, Sunday Night Football, Week 5? Like, really pretty good weather, chance of a shootout, all this stuff that could happen. Put in the second to last game of the year. It doesn't really make sense for either, team, trying to, do better in their conference, obviously. So from that perspective, obviously, we'll talk about the matchup, but, we're talking about 2 of the best quarterbacks in football. Obviously, Josh Allen being Superman. And you should think you get this matchup in a better spot than weeks, 17, 18. I don't even know what the numbers are these days with the extra week. But it's kind of a meaningless game, like you said. Like we need the Patriots to lose to the Jets for the Bills to matter.
Yeah,
so,
good luck with
Josh
that.
Allen probably not playing next week. Jalen Hurts probably not playing next week. It's going to be questionable. Like, is both teams going to put the most effort in? Is it going to be the game that most people would want?
Right. Interesting how, Dave, the 2 conferences, kind of the overall picture, AFC and NFC, is so similar. And you mentioned the 2-seed possibility for the Eagles, and we're talking about this game like it's almost meaningless, but it's not quite that. It isn't at all if you think there's a big difference between these seedings, like the range you're in. I don't know. When you look at –
I think there is because, if you're looking at who would I rather play, the Rams or the 49ers, it's the 49ers, and it's really not even close. I personally think the Rams are the best team in the NFC.
Okay.
I know they just lost to Seattle, but we're not going to talk about Sam Darnold and worry about that. Seattle's not going anywhere in the playoffs, so they're not a team I'm really worried about. But the Rams, obviously, if Devontae Adams comes back and he's healthy, the hamstring is obviously a big question. To me, the Rams are the biggest test for the Eagles, and there could be a week, first week wild card matchup of Philadelphia versus, the Rams. And you're not going to ask for a bigger matchup, in the wild card weekend. So do I really want to open up against the Rams? Not really, but, it is what it is if it happens. But the 49ers, we saw on Monday night, really good offense, awful defense. Phillip Rivers made, you would have thought it was Phillip Rivers of 10, 15 years ago, just slicing them up. So from that perspective, I'd rather play the 49ers. I don't really worry about Kyle Shanahan. Their offense is very solid. Obviously, Kittle just got a little banged up on Monday, but he should be fine for the playoffs. But from my perspective, I would rather play the 49ers. But it's going to be one of those 2 teams. We'll see where it falls.
It could be Seattle still, no?
Like not likely. Not likely.
Well, San Francisco wins 2. 13-4. That's the 1 seed if they do that. Their last game is against Seattle. Then you have Seattle. They could lose to Carolina. Probably don't. 13-4.
If you're telling me that I got a chance at Sam Darnold in Philadelphia, give me all those chances.
Philadelphia and Seattle have met plenty of times. They sort of they get together this time of year.
And Seattle owns us most of the time. But we're talking about Sam Darnold here. And I've been outspoken since day one on Sam Darnold, and I know he's had a great season. But recently, you're starting to see some of the cracks in Sam Darnold. I know he let him back last week and all that jazz. But I remember Sam Darnold in the playoffs last year. And I'm not worried about Sam Darnold coming to Philadelphia with the lunatics, including myself, who will be in attendance. That'll be tailgating from 12 hours before. I'm not really worried about any team coming to Philadelphia in the playoffs, to be honest with you.
You ever been here for a game?
I have never been to Buffalo. It's a place that I definitely want to get to.
It's our last 2 weeks of the stadium unless playoffs fall into place. So this is, emotional times, I think, for fans, not only with the pressure on this year, but with the future in mind. Dave Tripoli, my guest. I know Dave through the FFPC. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off through New Year's here on WGR. So you slipped in when you brought up Jalen Hurts' name earlier, one of the best quarterbacks in the league with Allen. What's your take on Hurts? A, just how you feel about him at this stage of his career, what he's accomplished, and just who he is as a player. And then B, any kind of misperception you think is rampant about him.
To be honest with you, I was never really a big Jalen Hurts guy early on. I was not a fan. I didn't like, what I saw early in his career. But right before the Super Bowl year, I pledged my allegiance. I know I have a lot of group chats with a lot of friends who are listening right now. And I made sure before the season started, I pledged my allegiance to Jalen Hurts. And he led him to a Super Bowl that year, obviously fell short with that weak call against Kansas City at the end. Who knows what could have happened then. But Jalen Hurts this year has been okay. I'm not going to sit here and say he's been good or great or any of that stuff. He's definitely played better lately. Could it be him? Could it be the offensive coordinator? I always watch tape of most of the Eagles games after the game's over. A couple days down the road after it settles in. He's missed a lot of throws. But at the end of the day, one thing you can't say about Jalen Hurts is he will always put you in a position to win. And that's just what it is. He's a winner. And you saw that last year with, obviously a very, very good team around him. Let's not sugarcoat it. He didn't do it all himself. But in the Super Bowl, they stopped Barkley. Hurts had to win that game. He did. Most people didn't think he could because it was all Barkley all year. Yeah, Hurts had his moments, but a lot of it was either tush-push Barkley having that career year, the O-line, obviously defense making plays, receivers mixing in. But Hurts showed in the Super Bowl that he can do it all. So from that perspective, I'm very excited to see what the next couple, games are going to look like from him before the playoffs. Hopefully he continues to show what he's been showing over the last couple of weeks. Obviously I know it's been the Raiders and the Commanders and all that stuff, but Hurts is really, seems like he's getting through his progressions more. He's getting Goddard involved more. Devonta Smith, obviously, Barkley, being more of a dominant force in the running game. So I'm very excited to see what happens next with Hurts. Again, I would never put him in the category as Josh Allen as a talent. I'm a big Josh Allen fan. Very, very high on Josh Allen. To me, he's, the best quarterback in football. But Josh Allen is running out of excuses team-wise. He's the leader of the team. You probably agree with me. This year, more than any other year, I know they're not going to have a home game. Nobody's probably going to come to Buffalo. And, that would be a, pretty big advantage. But Josh Allen, he has his Robin right now with James Cook, the receiving core, not the best. But the AFC is not strong. I've been very outspoken about the AFC. Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, are the strongest team in the AFC. Even though they're going to lose this week, it doesn't matter. They're still, in my opinion, the strongest team in the AFC. Who in the AFC scares you? I'll ask you that. What team would you be worried about?
I think anybody but the Steelers or the Chargers probably. I wouldn't be, scared of having to go to L.A. if it ends up that they beat Denver and kind of get to the top of the division. That's still a possibility. But Houston's defense wrecked the Bills. Jacksonville looks like it can kind of do it all right now. And they've been a tough team for the Bills over the years, if that matters. You don't have to go back forever, but still there's 100%. That. And New England looks great, Dave. I don't know. Even Sunday night, yes, Jackson leaves the game. That's a great win to come back like that. And May is still doing it all on the field, and they've beaten the Bills once and almost twice. So I don't think I'd just as soon be afraid of the Bills if I were those teams than the other way around. I don't know what to do with Denver. I just think going there with that defense can be problematic, but I'd put them lower on this list than the others.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I've been, when it comes to Drake May, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. I don't trust the coaching staff when it matters. In a big spot in the playoffs, Mike Vrabel has always come up lame. When he's had Tennessee teams that obviously I know Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback and all that stuff, but they've had spot after spot after spot and never really delivered. So my questions come there. Their defense is banged up. When it comes to the AFC, I like Jacksonville. Jacksonville's probably my favorite, not named Buffalo. They're just really hitting form right now. Trevor Lawrence seems like he's figuring it out a little bit. But Denver, I don't trust Bo Nix. He's going to throw it to you. If you catch it, it could change the game. I mean, he's going to give you plenty of opportunities with mistakes that he make. And, Sean Payton, obviously he's a battle-tested coach, but I think Buffalo goes in there if that's where the line draws and they beat Denver. And to me, they're never going to get a better opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
No Mahomes, no Burrow, no Lamar. Like, really no excuses, even though they got to go on the road. Like, Josh Allen, if the O-line protects him, I agree with what you're saying with the Texans. That defense is no joke. That defense could win them a Super Bowl. At the end of the day, they're just a bunch of dogs, all of them. They beat the piss out of everybody.
And that's a compliment now. It didn't used to be a dog, but now that's a compliment.
That defense is one of the best defense I've seen in a really long time. They attack, and they attack. We obviously saw what happened with Josh Allen when they played. But at the end of the day, I trust Josh Allen. I don't know why this year I think it's different. I just think this Super Bowl matchup we're going to have this year is the same matchup we have coming up this week. Right. Eagles against the Bills. And then we all know the two crazy fan bases, it's going to be an absolute just war. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
We'll all just flood San Francisco.
I mean, it's going to be an absolute just – Buffalo has been waiting for this their whole life. If that matchup does happen, unfortunately they're going to have to wait a little longer because, back-to-back champs are coming. But other than that, I root for the Bills. I have nothing really negative ever to say about the Bills except with Josh Allen. He's got to get there. It's got to be time. I know a lot of our friends who are Buffalo fans are very outspoken about everybody else and not Allen. I think you and I know who we're talking about here. But Josh Allen needs to get it done this year. There's no excuses this year.
Dave, before you go, one quick thing, if not maybe two. How great is this? Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, you were talking about Hurts. I wanted to slip in how durable both of these guys have been, especially for how physical they are. Two guys, both under 30, 157 combined rushing touchdowns, including playoffs.
Insane. If you really think about it, insane with the tush push, like getting hit. People can say whatever they want about the play. I personally don't love the play, but at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts gets nailed every single time. He's getting O-linemen falling on him, D-line falling on him, corners trying to take swipes at him. Same thing with Josh Allen. They're running something similar. He's getting hit, and he's more of a rushing threat than Hurts is right now. And we're not talking about just obviously last week he got banged up a little bit. There were some questions, was he going to be ready? He came back. Josh Allen just is a warrior. He just doesn't miss games.
84 rushing touchdowns for Allen, including playoffs. 73 for Hurts.
Absolutely insane.
It is. I have to bring this last thing up before you go because it still haunts me a year and a half ago. Like, who's the pass catcher for the Bills? And I don't know. I'm just rifling off
nobody.
I said everybody because I didn't think there was really an answer. It's still true. This is like two full seasons later, and there was no answer.
No answer. We try to throw out MVS and Elijah Moore and Keon Coleman, and we can keep going down the list. Every year we're going to ask the same question. And since Diggs has been gone there really hasn't been an answer. So I don't know if there's ever going to be an answer, but if Josh Allen does and the Bills don't get it done this year, they might have to figure that out in the offseason because Josh Allen's still young enough to where they have a chance, in a AFC who's obviously stacked with a lot of, talented quarterbacks, but Kansas City, Lamar, they're going to be back next year. Burrow, they're going to be back next year. So it's not going to get any easier. So they're going to have to figure that out and get somebody reliable because Josh Palmer's not getting it done.
Your Super Bowl,
he's not getting it done.
Your Super Bowl 60 MVP, Brandon Cooks, saying it now. On that note, Dave, Merry Christmas. Thanks for your time today, and can't wait for Sunday.
Always a pleasure. Go Birds.
Thanks, Dave. Dave Tripoli. You can check out Dave on FFPC podcasts. I know him through fantasy, and he obviously makes no secret of his rooting allegiances, which is great. Why make a secret out of it? Why not just say it? If that's how you feel, just say it. And good for you. He got us back to the conversation we all want to have all the time, and just whether the Bills have good enough receivers to win. What a pro. 803-0550 for your thoughts. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you. Lines are open next. Sal will join me at 5. This is WGR.
For the Bills, with Christmas tomorrow, they're going to be hosting the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, 4/25. 7 players did not practice today. Joey Bosa, Daquan Jones, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Jordan Phillips, Jordan Poyer, and Matt Prater. Then 4 players were limited, including Josh Allen, Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, and Shaq Thompson were the other 3. The Barnes Firm Injury Report, it is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Injured for help, call 1-800-8-MILLION. Do stay tuned. We'll get more on the Bills as Sal Capacio is going to join the show in just about a half hour at 5 p.m. Tomorrow, 3 games for Christmas. 1 p.m., Washington hosts Dallas over on Netflix. Josh Johnson is going to get the start at quarterback for the Commanders. Also on Netflix, the Vikings hosting the Detroit Lions. 4:30 kick for that game. J.J. McCarthy is out for Minnesota. Suffered a hairline fracture in his right hand. It's going to be Max Brosmer then for the Vikings. And then the night will round out at 8:15 over on Amazon Prime. Denver's at the Chiefs, and staying with the pattern for these Christmas games, a backup quarterback is going to be playing. It's the Chiefs. They're down actually to their 3rd-string quarterback, Chris Oladokun. He is expected to get the start with Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew both down with knee injuries. However, the Chiefs did sign Shane Buechele off of the Bills practice squad. And then we do have some sports action tonight. It's over in college football, the Hawaii Bowl. Hawaii hosts Cal just after 8. That'll be over on ESPN. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Very, very high on Josh Allen. To me, he's the best quarterback in football. But Josh Allen is running out of excuses team-wise. You probably agree with me. This year, more than any other year, I know they're not going to have a home game. Nobody's probably going to come to Buffalo. That would be a pretty big advantage. But Josh Allen, he has his Robin right now with James Cook. The receiving core, not the best. But the AFC is not strong. They're still, in my opinion, the strongest team in the AFC.
My guest from just before, Dave Tripoli, with the FFPC. How many quarterbacks headed to the playoffs have Super Bowl experience? Aaron Rodgers seems headed to the playoffs. He's been there once in 40 years of starting. And Jalen Hurts has been there twice, win and a loss. He was really good the first time, too, when they lost to Kansas City. Could have easily won that game. Kind of like in Dave's point there, never would have blamed Jalen Hurts for that loss. I mean, that was a 35-31 game, I think. That's Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore scoring late touchdowns for the Chiefs. So Hurts has been twice. Rodgers has been once. Matthew Stafford has one. They're going to the playoffs. That's it, right? Nix, May, Lawrence, Allen, Herbert, Stroud, Darnold, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, or Baker Mayfield, either way. Brock Purdy, close. NFC Championship, got hurt in that game against the Eagles, and they were stuck at that point. It's Garoppolo who took, I guess you can count Garoppolo too. He's the Rams' backup, but I just mean the starters. And then Jordan Love. Anybody else with a chance? Kind of funny to think Phillip Rivers would be next on the AFC list. He's never been anyway, even though he's been starting forever, with a break in there, of course. Lamar Jackson has not. If he comes back and the Ravens pull it out, Jared Goff could get in. He's been to one. Oladokun. Brosmer. I think I'm good. Hurts 2. Rodgers 1. They'll be the longest shot, the biggest underdog in the AFC anyway, Rodgers. So, I mean, you can't just write them off, I think. But they'll be 7th out of 7 in the odds in the AFC. As the one with the one quarterback who's actually won a Super Bowl from that conference. And then Stafford. It is open. I think, it's interesting to me because you hear this kind of take about Allen, and we are getting to the crunch time here with the playoffs coming up so soon. And I think how Dave, in that clip, what he said about Allen is probably most fans around the country. Or do I need to say the world now? How do the people of Brazil, having seen NFL football up close, feel about Josh Allen? I think that is the prevailing opinion even though I don't scoff at quite to the extent Dave does the counterpoints to this, because Allen has had, I said this about Hurts a minute ago, tremendous playoff performances. But in those bigger games, hasn't won. He's won a playoff game every year in the last 5, by the way. It's just, not that it helps his image, I guess, in this particular context, but who did the Bills beat in those earlier playoff games? He's got Lamar twice. He's also got your Skylar Thompsons and Mason Rudolphs and so on. So I think what he said there is how that's going to be the main narrative on Allen and the Bills in the playoffs. It might even be the leading narrative in the entire league in the postseason is, can Buffalo finally do it? And that's the last 5 years, and it's also the last 40. Can they actually this time do it? The path has been cleared. I just don't think it's that much better, if at all better for them, and maybe you agree or don't, that they would have to go on the road 3 times versus having, playoff games even at home against Mahomes and Burrow, which they've had and lost. And even in Arrowhead, they've won there a bunch. And those games are close, and they, lost in the playoffs last year. I guess I just don't think this is better. Kansas City, here's a point to this. It really might come down to how much credence you give to like intangibles, experience, and quote, knowing how to win, which is not a thing I spend time on. I think if you learn how to win, you have to forget when you go like the Chiefs forgot this year, or was it just that they ran super hot last year in close games? They were a good team that was really lucky, and then this year, maybe for the most part, they were a good team but ran unlucky, and then it was all the pressure late in the season, got to win, torn ACL, that's the ball game. 1 year older, Kelsey, like that. Chris Jones, I think even that way too. So it's fickle like that for me. And so I don't do learn how to win, know how to win. I don't really want to subscribe to that. I think this would only make sense if it can go the other way. I think in football, there's a lot of luck. You need to be at least this good, and then you need to get that much luck, and then you got it. But I don't think that's going to be how it sounds. That's just not how most people do this. Most people, I think, still do this as you're the quarterback. You need to figure it out. You need to win. And that's how Dave sounds. I think that's how all your favorite national pundits are going to sound too. It's how Nick Wright, all those guys are going to be the same way. Win for once or leave me alone. Fair or not? I don't think last year's path, which was as the 2 seed, home to Denver, big favorite, easy win, home to Baltimore, coin flip, and it really was a coin flip game that you won on turnovers, go to Arrowhead, is necessarily harder than, I wonder, what would it be if all the favorites win their playoff games from where the seedings stand right now? I'm starting at Jacksonville. The point is whether the Bills' path will be easier this year than last year. So they win these games at Jacksonville. Then they're the 6, and that's probably at Denver. If the standings are finalized the way they look right now, that's probably at Denver. It could be at Pittsburgh or the Chargers, the 4 or 5 winner. That depends on Houston and New England. So I'm either the lowest seed going to Denver, or I get New England out of the way and go to Pittsburgh or LA, which I don't know. Does LA have to win in Pittsburgh because anybody does? This is a big difference. This is a big tipping point in this analysis, right? Going to Denver versus going to LA or Pittsburgh, or is it not? I don't really want it to be. I want to just sort of play out a reasonable scenario in the AFC playoffs. Let's say it's at Jacksonville, at Denver, at New England. The home teams win, except for the Bills, who win in Jacksonville, then in Denver, and then go to New England. Is that easier? than last year. It doesn't seem easier to me. And part of my thinking this way is the point I made about last year's Chiefs, which is that team stunk. And you went there in the playoffs and you just let them do whatever they wanted on offense. That was the only game last year they had like that. I don't know. It's easy to fall into, well, it's Kansas City and it's a dynasty. Reed and Mahomes. It really wasn't that kind of year for them last year. They were very fortunate to be in that game and to host it, and they won it. 803-0550, do you agree with that? Is this year's path harder or easier than last year's? Pick any year. I don't know. What was the year before? What was the year before was home game and then Kansas City at home. They're the 2 seed and they got the Chiefs at home and lost on the missed field goal. The year before that is the Bengals year. Easy home game and then home to Cincinnati. You didn't get that third game in those years to find out. You would have probably had to go on the road again. I'm not sure right off if that's true, but I think so. The 13 seconds year, they would have been home to the Bengals in the AFC Championship. How is this year really easier than those? Comes down to the Chiefs, I think. I think if you think the Chiefs are just undeniable in the playoffs, and a lot of people do, then you'd rather have it this way. And when it comes to quarterback narratives, that's it. That's all of it. You know, it's just got to. Mahomes isn't there. Even if Lamar Jackson were there, so what? Mahomes isn't there. Or even Burrow's the second name on that list because Burrow has beaten Allen. Since I'm talking about quarterbacks in this way, why not just make it head-to-head? So we're closer to finding out. That doesn't have to be the official list, of course, or the matchups. But right now, 3-6 is Bills-Jaguars. I'll put this to Sal coming back, or in about 20 minutes. He'll join me at 5. The Sabres are off until Saturday night. How about them? Home to Boston. The league is on hiatus until Saturday. I'm maybe equal parts impressed and amused by the Sabres. I think it's almost as funny as it is impressive that is it almost to the minute when they decided to fire Kevin Adams that they've not lost a game? It was on that road trip when everybody started to spread the same rumors that the Sabres had decided. They only called it like, we're just going to look at it for a few days until they got home, and then they did the thing. But they have not. They're in Edmonton on a losing streak, probably having decided to change out general managers. They're up 3-0 going into the third period. They give up a goal immediately. It goes to 3-2. They give up the tying goal with like 2 seconds to play, McDavid. This team will just never win another game. They win that game. They've not lost since. 803-0550. I'll look for your calls after a short break. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Mike Schopp here on WGR. 15 minutes. See that the Chiefs are likely to be moving to Kansas in a dome. I wonder what the odds are that the new Bill Stadium will go down as the last outdoor stadium in NFL history. Green Bay would have to find a roof. That would just be, there'd be protests. But it's just the excess, you know? I mean, the Bills could have had a roof, I guess. It's a choice. It's not like they didn't go way over budget. I mean, it's a choice. So maybe it's going to be brand new in 2026. By the time it's out of, I mean, will there be an NFL? What will last longer? The stadium hosting NFL games or the league itself? I don't know. Just the excess just continues to amaze, and I don't know. There are other words for it, but Kansas City is moving, and all the stuff. A lot of what people get romantic about, especially when we're older, about the NFL and how we fell in love with it. Just, you know, at the same time, though, it's a little bit of a fairer game if you're playing indoors. It neutralizes a team like the Bills, you know. Obviously, could have an example playing in freezing temperatures or the snow. So Kansas City appears to be next. 2031, I heard for that. 3 games tomorrow. You've heard about just how this slate looks and the backup quarterbacks. The league struck out with these matchups, and it's not like they should have expected to. Dallas, Washington. Washington was in the NFC Championship last year. Detroit, Minnesota. Detroit's been so good. Minnesota's been good. That was a huge game week 18 last year. Denver, Kansas City. Who would have thought this game would come around and the Broncos would be 13-point road favorites against the Chiefs? The thing that happened would have to have happened, Mahomes, for that to even have been conceivable. So it's the kind of day where you might, if you're the kind of football fan that I am, be tempted to skip it. Nah, come on. We're not doing that. Netflix and Prime, bring it on. Fantasy lineups. Maybe you made it to the finals. If you did, you've got really tough decisions. You always do, but some of these injuries and teams shutting down their good players, so many bad teams. Are they tanking? Some dicey ones this week. One interesting, thinking about players that may end up being viable. This is more for the DFS player, the daily player who's into FanDuel, DraftKings, that kind of scene. If George Kittle misses for San Francisco, that's Sunday night, so that's a different kind of setup probably. But the tight end who went in for, one of the guys who went in for him, Jake Tonjes, earlier in the season, was one of our Thursday night football anytime touchdown hits. When I don't remember who they were playing, but Tonjes was a winner for us early in the season. I mean, hopefully you're in better shape than that. But say you have Brock Bowers and he went to IR, you're going to need somebody. I just think Kelsey at this point, and that's tomorrow night, good luck. It's not like there's really anybody else, but for as great as Kelsey has been, I'd want to find somebody else. Quick point, too, on the Monday night game. I wasn't here yesterday to comment on it. San Francisco, Indianapolis. I'm not bitter that that broadcast spent so much energy on Phillip Rivers. I mean, that's what a lot of people were probably tuning in to look at. First play, they go deep, and it's thrown like 10 yards short. But he's out there, and good for him. Not enough was said about Brock Purdy's performance in that game and just like what he looks like as a player. Kevin Cole, big analytics guy in the NFL, does great work, unexpected points. He has a chart today, and I can't really fully translate this. Adjusted quarterback efficiency. Brock Purdy is your number one quarterback in the league for that this year. You can find this chart for yourself and say what you want to say about it. Purdy, Love, May, Allen, Stafford, your top 5. Geno Smith right up behind Cam Ward at the very bottom. What a disastrous year for him. I liked him a lot going into this season. I fell for it. But Purdy is your number one. And just, I don't have time for this now, maybe later, but I always have a soft spot for an athlete that never shows you his emotions. You get all fired up, maybe you're overconfident, cocky. You get too negative, bad vibes. Get it together. This is individual sports. This is any sport. I love an athlete, man or woman, who never makes it clear, makes it obvious how they are feeling in the course of the competition. And man, this Purdy couldn't do anything wrong against the Colts, and just, high fives, whatever, right to the sideline, helmet off, sat down, give me that tablet, let's talk about it. Just did not, even though it's like, dude, enjoy yourself. You might be thinking that, but in the course of the game, I'd always have a lot of respect for the player that just doesn't give themselves away. And he seems to be that type. Certainly was on Monday. Sal Capacio after the update. Merry Christmas and happy holidays from us. This is Mike Schopp here at WGR.
Today for the Buffalo Bills as they do get ready to host the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, 4:25 kickoff. 7 players did not practice today. Joey Bosa, Daquan Jones, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Jordan Phillips, Jordan Poyer, and Matt Prater. 4 players were then limited: Josh Allen, Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, and Shaq Thompson. We also did hear about Josh Allen yesterday. All expectations are he is going to play Sunday. And the Barnes Firm Injury Report, it is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Injured for help, call 1-800-8-million. Do stay tuned. We'll get more on the Bills coming up next as Sal Capacio will join the show. Around the NFL, we do have 3 games tomorrow for Christmas. At 1 p.m., Washington's going to host Dallas. That'll be over on Netflix. Josh Johnson will get the start at quarterback for the Commanders. Also on Netflix, the Vikings hosting the Lions. 4:30 kick there. J.J. McCarthy is out. That is due to a hairline fracture in his right hand, so it's going to be Max Brosmer for Minnesota. Then at 8:15 over on Amazon Prime, Denver is at Kansas City, and staying with the pattern for these games, it is going to be a backup quarterback for one of the teams, the Chiefs. They are down to their 3rd-string quarterback, Chris Oladokun. He is expected to get the start with Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew both down. However, the team did pick up Shane Buechele from the Bills' practice squad. And then we do have some sports action tonight. It is over in college football, the Hawaii Bowl. Hawaii hosts Cal. That game is just after 8 o'clock over on ESPN. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Sal Capacio.
Filling up right behind the Bills bench right now with their flags and their hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Let's go Buffalo chant.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
This is one that I'm hoping somebody else has done or will do the work on. Just talking earlier about, which we all have been, we've all realized how this year's playoff field, both conferences, but for the AFC especially, think about the last 25 years in the AFC, you just don't have much Super Bowl experience. You have none outside of Aaron Rodgers in the AFC, of the 7 teams that are in right now, and nothing with the playoff standings will change that. Aaron Rodgers' 1 appearance in a Super Bowl in all those years is the only, right? Didn't we decide this earlier? It's Hurts, Stafford, and there was one more on the other. There was one more. Anyway, I think now I'm getting confused, but Rodgers should be the only Super Bowl veteran, so to speak, on the AFC side. And I just wonder, with taking both conferences into account, Hurts 2, Stafford 1, and I feel like I'm missing somebody. It's so few previous Super Bowl appearances. Sal Capacio, I wonder when the last season was when it was this few, if it's like 4 or 5 games. Go back to, all right, so the first year Mahomes made it, where he enters the playoffs with 0 Super Bowl appearances. There's Brady with 6, 7, whatever it is, sorry. Rodgers on the NFC side, Breeze on the NFC side. It's probably a long time since so few playoff quarterbacks had ever been to the Super Bowl.
You're missing Goff, by the way.
Goff is the one. Well, he might not make it, but right.
Right. Okay, that's right. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's right. So he would be the one. I agree with you. It's kind of weird, right? There's been more quarterback movement as well over the last several years. So now you're talking about like Rodgers, obviously in the NFC. I mean, Russell Wilson's no longer around. I guess he is, but he was a guy that would be in this mix a little bit.
Sure.
That you'd think about every once in a while. I'm just trying to think of some of the ways that everything's changed. But you're right. I mean, but this is the whole talking point about Josh Allen this year. I just think it's I don't like the whole talk about if it's Josh Allen has to do it this year simply because of all the quarterbacks who aren't in the field anymore or this year. And I don't like it for 2 reasons. Number one, we've seen Josh Allen be literally the greatest playoff statistical quarterback ever in many ways. All right. I mean, there's just so many things that say he's had the best playoff stats of any quarterback that's ever lived with his amount of games. Mm-hmm. The second reason I don't like it, Mike, is, well, why couldn't those guys even get to the playoffs then? You know what I mean? Like it's I said the other day to Zach and Derek, to me, it's like when LeBron would people would bring up his record in the finals and some sort of negative. And I'm like, but he's getting to the finals more than the guys the guys you're talking about here. He's actually literally beating them to get there, and then he might lose. Anyway, that's why I don't like that. You're right. This is a way different field, but that has changed then the conversation to, boy, if Josh Allen doesn't make a Super Bowl this year, if he doesn't get there this year, I don't know if it'll ever happen because you don't have those quarterbacks anymore, much less, the winning ones. I know you're talking about simply the guys who've even been in the playoff mix, basically.
Yeah, the LeBron comparison works for me. It really, it speaks to whether you think these guys crack under the pressure, the weight of the playoff pressure or the Super Bowl itself or the NBA Finals, and I just don't. And I think Allen's statistics go to that, to that point or that opinion. I'm looking at the first year Brady made it into the playoffs, 2001 season. There you've got Favre in the playoff field. You've got, Rodgers wasn't there because Favre was there, but I think Kurt Warner had already been by then. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the numbers would look like, but as we knew already, before I bogged us down, it is an interesting year for this. Speaking of the playoff field, I'm sure you've been thinking about this and talking about this a lot, and apologies if I ask you anything that Bulldog has asked you these last couple days, but is it an easier path than last year? It's almost the same kind of question or point as the other thing. My guest last hour made this point, and it's what you're saying. If you don't make it this year, when will you make it? Is, say, going to Jacksonville, Denver, and New England easier than hosting Denver and Baltimore and then going to Kansas City to play a Chiefs team that had struggled all year offensively? I don't think it is.
Who was your guest last hour?
Dave Tripoli from Philadelphia.
Interesting.
Well, this is the conventional take, though, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm curious because I've seen it, and I know you and I both know Matt Verderam real well, and he's on this topic a lot lately. He's on this subject and about it's the same thing with Allen, and he has to get there if he can't because he hasn't beaten Mahomes, and if now or never. And I just think it's interesting, the different perspectives, and I don't think anybody's coming at it from a necessarily like a hateful place or anything. I just think we're so close to what we see Josh do that it's hard for me. And you're talking to people here, you and me and other people in Buffalo who saw teams with Hall of Famers go to 4 straight Super Bowls and lose, and we know how tough that is, right? So it's hard for me to kind of criticize getting there and or not even getting there because it's such a team game. And I think that's where I'm going to go with this question, which is, Mike, it is easier from a standpoint of the best players in the conference and who's playing. I keep going to winning 3 on the road in the NFL is tough in the regular season, let alone the playoffs when you're actually playing really good teams who got there.
Yeah.
I just think that's a tough deal.
Yeah, me too. Well, it doesn't have to fall in exactly those teams,
right.
But the way I laid it out was the top 3 seeds at the moment. So we'll
right.
see. They could go to Pittsburgh in round 2 or LA or something like that, and it might look very different.
I think on a one-game basis, like each week to week, I'd probably agree with you. Like knowing if you tell me, okay, they're first going to start in Pittsburgh, I'm like, okay, I'll take that. And then the next week you're like, oh, they're going to go to Jacksonville. I know Jacksonville's playing really well. I might be very okay with that compared to playing Lamar at home, going to Arrowhead, playing Joe Burrow. Like anything in a vacuum, yes, I think that is the correct answer. I take a look at the big picture. The NFL is a grind. It is, you 3 weeks on the road, no rest in sight, injuries. I just think that's a very tough ask.
Has, after this last weekend's results, the goal of the 5 seed versus the 6 changed for you with Baltimore in real trouble now and Jackson hurt again? Like they're in really tough. So that's probably Pittsburgh now, and Jacksonville looks so good in its win in Denver. Is there more urgency for you thinking of the Bills getting to the 5 versus the 6?
No, I've thought about this a lot. I don't know if there's much of a difference other than if you get to the 5, you still have maybe a much more legitimate chance than ever before to host after that.
Yeah.
6 is tough, right? And I don't know. This is really good. I was going to go back actually today. Now that This is what happens when we walk. Are you like me? Like you go for a walk with a dog or whatever, and you just have all these random weird thoughts in your mind you want to go research and check out. And that's what I did today. I'm walking the dog today, and I'm thinking to myself literally this. So I'm going to try this maybe later, which is since the 7-team format started, I don't believe a 7 has beaten a 2 at all. I want to go back and look.
Just once.
But what's kind of been the... Oh, you said it has happened or no?
It's happened once.
It has.
Green
Okay.
Bay, Dallas.
Oh, okay. You know what? I was only thinking AFC, but thank you. And I just want to kind of go and look at what do the numbers say about maybe in any year if a 7 can win and a 6 can win all at the same time. I do think it's so sounds weird to say. This could be a year where in the second round you're looking at 1, 5, 6, and 7 all still alive.
You might. I believe it's only been a few years, but the only close 2-7 AFC playoff game was Bills-Dolphins. And that really was sort of a fluky game. It was 34-31. The rest, including Bills-Broncos last year, have been blowouts. So you're going to see, at least in terms of the 7, you're going to see that.
I think the difference this year, though, is the 7 this year
12-5
is going to have at least 11 wins. They could have 12.
Right. Yeah, pretty fair chance of that. Houston and the Chargers play this weekend. And if Houston wins, it's 11 at worst if they were to win that game in L.A. That's on Saturday afternoon, by the way.
What do you think about that game? Who do you think, in your opinion, who would be the preferred outcome for Bills fans?
Well, what would it change? If the Chargers win, they will have a look at that division, which I think I would like. I think I would like that. If Houston wins, they might still not have a look at the AFC South. Houston only can get to the AFC South with 2 wins and then a Jacksonville loss, and the Jags end with the Colts and Titans.
Right.
So I think I would say L.A. to your question. I think I would say L.A.
That's a good way to look at it.
I don't know who I like in the game, though.
I think you really still kind of want Buffalo to finish ahead of Houston on the chance that they play each other in the playoffs. But it doesn't have to be like that, right? I mean, I just think it's the boogeyman right now because of what happened down in Houston a month ago.
Right. Let's get to today's updates. We have an injury report to talk about, and it's lengthy. What's surprising today?
I don't know if anything's surprising. I think everything is more pretty unsurprising, actually, except it's Josh Allen actually practicing today when he didn't yesterday. And again, yesterday wasn't an official, but Sean McDermott gave it to us. So yesterday was a walkthrough. Today was a walkthrough, so it's an estimation today. And Josh Allen was upgraded to limited, so that's obviously good. Joey Bosa's hamstring. The only thing yesterday, we didn't know exactly why he wouldn't practice. Hamstring. He finished the game last week, but he had been dealing with the hamstring before that, so hopefully it's anything new that he's dealing with. I think it might be just more of a injury management situation, which is exactly what it is for Dalton Kincaid. At this point, Dalton Kincaid, injury management is what Sean McDermott's talking about. Dawson Knox didn't practice today with a knee injury. That's problematic if, given Dalton Kincaid's situation, Dawson Knox. And I could tell he was laboring a little bit during the game, Dawson Knox. But he finished the game. He played the game. And, it had nothing to do with, the drop pass in the end zone. That's, he's got to come up with that. But you could tell he was laboring during the game. And then I think actually good news that Shaq Thompson was limited with the neck injury. Anytime it's a neck injury, you're always concerned, obviously, both short-term and long-term. But, good news that he was limited today.
How badly injured is Allen? Sal, we haven't talked since before this Browns game, and I saw the play, and I know what the injury report says. Is this just one of these that he's good enough to shake off?
Yeah, it feels like that right now. I think the test is really going to be Sunday. How much do they have him do? And I don't expect it to be like, oh my God, we're just going to keep him in the pocket. He's never going to move. I mean, he even rolled out after the injury. He was rolling out. The play to Dawson Knox, he rolled out to the right. He had a couple of those. So I do think, though, that they'll probably be very aware and conscious with 2 weeks left and then the playoffs of putting him in harm's way. He's got to he's got to understand, too. And I think that's the trick, right? It's Josh Allen. If he's going to be playing, Mike, he's going to do Josh Allen things sometimes. How injured is he? The fact that he's back limited today, the fact that Sean has been consistent from the beginning on, he sees him playing Sunday. It wasn't like you could go back and say, and I know people go, wow, that's what the coach is going to say. I mean, a couple years ago, leading up to that Minnesota game when he got hurt in New York, Sean McDermott wasn't sure he was going to play, and he kept saying all week, like, we're not sure if he's going to play. So I think if it was on the borderline, he would talk about that. But that wasn't the case. And then we met with Josh yesterday. Josh did meet with the media yesterday. That's always a good sign. And he was very unequivocal, just saying that he will play.
Imagine if the Jets win
oh my God.
on Sunday. I mean,
I've done this.
Is it complete? It's not impossible. That it's a division game. All the things people say, turnovers, any given Sunday, etc. Did the Saints just bury them, or did the Jets? I mean, time of possessions are pretty close. Listen to me working here. Brady Cook.
I love it.
Brady Cook, but
I mean, that's what gets you to no way, right? Brady Cook.
It seems like the kind of game when a team wins like New England just did, that look out a little bit. Just because, shorter week and it seems like such an easy game to gloss over. Just, I don't know. I don't want to predict a Jets upset, but if there were one, all this stuff about what Allen does just completely changes against, then the game just becomes huge against Philadelphia, like 0-60.
I would say that Aaron Glenn is the type of coach. He will do whatever he can to try and get this win this week to try and play spoiler to the Jets. This is a guy that has no interest in losing, in tanking, whatever you want to call it. Like, this is not the situation they're in. They will do whatever they can to try and spoil the Patriots' season. There's a rivalry there. Aaron Glenn is an intense dude. Brady Cook is the quarterback. That's what gets me to, there's no way. But if you look last week, he was, 22 of 35, I think, if I remember right, something like that. He threw the ball 35 times, right? I mean, they weren't afraid to throw it with him. He actually completed some passes. I don't think they lost because of him. The way the Jets have to do it is probably running the ball, Breece Hall. So, I mean, these things happen in the NFL sometimes. The Browns beat the Packers, as we talked about earlier this year. There have been some weirder upsets. Heck, the Raiders were playing with the Texans last week. I get on the airplane, and I'm like, oh, my God, like, what's going on here? I think the Raiders had a lead for quite a bit there. Can you imagine? You say, can you imagine? Yeah, Mike, if that were to happen before the Bills take the field at 4:25 p.m. against the Eagles, and fans know the Bills need 2 wins to win the division, and maybe even have the 1 seed still in the window, but at least win the division, I just think everything changes. The dynamic of everything absolutely changes in Orchard Park Sunday.
For sure. Are they frozen out of the 1 if Denver wins tomorrow night?
I think they might be,
13-3 versus.
Now that I'm thinking about
I think they might be, but still, whatever.
Yeah.
The point
so
holds.
Go 2-7. Now you're talking 2-7, and now we're thinking about, well, do you really want the 2? You got Houston at the 7, right? I mean, now we're having a lot of different conversations. I would, yes, you would want the 2 to me.
Get me there. Have the Bills lost Shane Buechele?
Oh, yeah, Shane Buechele is on the Chiefs. The Chiefs signed him to their 53-man roster. Excuse me. Sorry about that. They signed him to his 53-man roster. And then, so he was a free agent because he's a practice squad guy. And every practice squad guy can sign with another team. The Bills lost another guy today. They lost an offensive lineman, Kendrick Green, signed with the Cleveland Browns. They offered him a contract. He signed, so the Bills went out and signed Richard Garage. They're familiar with him, so they brought him back to their offensive line. This is the time of year where teams are in evaluation mode, and they're looking around other teams' rosters and practice squads and going, okay, is there a guy that we can use that, hey, we bring him in here for 2 weeks, and if we really like him, we're going to keep him around. So, they did lose Shane Buechele, and good for Shane Buechele. He wasn't playing, obviously, in Buffalo, and now he gets 2 weeks of an actual NFL contract instead of a practice squad contract.
Not bad.
No.
I'm still having so much fun just thinking about all the quarterback turnover that there might be in the NFL next year. Today's speculation surrounds the Ravens for this, and that Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh are having a difficult time together, and there's always all this drama with Jackson. I wonder if something could possibly happen there. Do you think it is what percent chance might you give? Something I brought up early today, that Mitchell Trubisky is not a starter, probably. That's a long shot. But like a number 2 somewhere else on a team where the starter is maybe young and kind of a dart throw. Unlike this situation, obviously, here. Very different. Could you see it?
Yes, I could see it. He is a free agent at the end of the year. Last year he signed a 2-year deal, so he'll be a free agent. I could see it. I don't know where necessarily, but sure, there could be a team out there that would say, like, why not? I mean, the guy has, he has a pedigree of where he was drafted, obviously, played in the playoffs. Yeah, I could see it. I don't know how likely it is. Mitch, speaking of Shane, Shane, and Josh they're tight. They have a good quarterback room. But, if you have a chance to do that, Shane Buechele has a chance to go and earn some money. He's going to go do that despite all that. So if Mitch Trubisky gets that call from somebody, I wouldn't doubt it. I just think like 2 years ago that happened and he didn't really get a look. That's why he came back to Buffalo basically. So what's changed now? I'm not really sure.
It might just be the number of possible opportunities. But we don't really know that yet. You'd have to be with somebody where it's like we're taking a chance on a young guy, and look the way Darnold was. Darnold may even have outranked Trubisky, but you sort of made the case. Former top 3 pick, started multiple playoff games, only 31. He's made, by the way, more than $51 million in his career, Trubisky. That's pretty good.
And on the Lamar thing, boy, doesn't that, the way you put it, I saw the story about Lamar, possibly the Ravens could trade him. Dolphins are a team. He's from South Florida. I didn't know about the part you just said, which was Harbaugh and Lamar. It makes sense, but I'm thinking about it. And if that is the case, and the reporting right now is that it could go down that way, then that's basically the organization making a decision that it's John Harbaugh that they would keep and not Lamar Jackson, right? In that situation where I think there's been a lot about Harbaugh's tenure there, and there's a lot of fans who think it's time to move on from him. So I think that whole dynamic is really interesting.
Yeah, we might be headed for another offseason where we're hearing updates from the different camps all the time on that one, which I don't need in my life, but we might get it anyway. Merry Christmas, Sal. What is your Christmas Eve normally like?
So we're going to be a little quiet here with Yana and Max and I. We actually we're going to be cooking. They made some cookies a little earlier. I'm not the best cookie designer or a decorator or anything like that, but I tried my hand a couple times. And then tonight, just a quiet night with the family and watch some movies. And we do have a tradition in the Capacio household going back to when I was very little, where my brother and I got to open one gift on Christmas Eve before Christmas Day. So we will probably do a gift exchange tonight, one gift on Christmas Eve.
My house has tended to be most of the within the family presents get opened in the morning today before I come in. I'm always working today. Bulldog is always off at the end of the year. But today we didn't do that, and my kids were just incredulous. Like, what? It's Christmas Eve, and we're like, you didn't get up until 1. I mean, you didn't give yourself enough of a window anyway. Dad's got to go. So it has to. They'll manage. They'll be fine. I'm sure they'll be fine.
I love it. Yes.
Thank you, Sal. Enjoy your night and tomorrow, and we'll talk again on Friday.
Merry Christmas to you and your family, Mike, and everybody out there listening.
Thank you. Sal Capacio on the West Her Hotline. His appearance is brought to you by Outlet Liquor. Your place to buy a case, Outlet Liquor. What's your outlet? $51 million in the bank for Trubisky. Does that seem right? Does it seem high? Maybe even low? I mean, he was a top 3 pick. But didn't get the 5th-year option. It's kind of bounced around. Pittsburgh, remember? Did he come into the league at a time where, like, well, he's post-Bradford. He's not going back that far to when the huge guaranteed contracts at the top were, I think, much bigger. It was just different, at least. I didn't want to ask Sal if he's surprised by $51 million. Maybe he wouldn't be. I'm not sure what to think. How about that? What a hot take. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you. Eagles and Bills Sunday, the AFC playoff picture. I've been talking a lot about that today, naturally, and I'm sure we'll do more of it on Friday. Only the one game tomorrow involves the AFC. That's Denver at Kansas City, and it barely does, although Denver helps its chances, big time for the division title and the 1 seed if they get it. I don't think they can clinch. I think the Chargers, they get another shot at Denver if they stay within one game and win in the rematch Week 18. It would be L.A. I told Sal, you might have heard me just there say, I think that's what the Bills should want, but I don't know. How do you feel about Denver? Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off. Thanks for listening on this Christmas Eve. 803-0550 for your calls here on WGR.
Bills held a walkthrough practice for the second straight day as they do get ready to host the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, 4:25 kickoff. The difference from yesterday, though, we do actually have an official injury report today. 7 players did not practice. Joey Bosa, Daquan Jones, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Jordan Phillips, Jordan Poyer, and Matt Prater. And then 4 players were limited. Josh Allen, Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, and Shaq Thompson. But we did hear from Bills head coach Sean McDermott yesterday, and he did say that Allen is expected to play even with being limited today. And the Barnes Firm Injury Report, it is brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Injured for help, call 1-800-8-million. Around the league, we do have 3 games on Christmas at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Washington hosts Dallas over on Netflix. Josh Johnson is going to get the start at quarterback for the Commanders. Also on Netflix, the Vikings hosting the Lions at 4:30. J.J. McCarthy is out for Minnesota due to a hairline fracture in his right hand, so it's going to be Max Brosmer getting the start. And then 8:15 over on Amazon Prime, Denver is at Kansas City, and staying with that pattern, we do have another backup quarterback getting the start. It's for the Chiefs, Chris Oladokin. He's expected to get the start with Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew both down, but the Chiefs did sign Shane Buechele from the Bills practice squad. And then later on tonight, we do have some sports action. It's in college football, the Hawaii Bowl, as Hawaii hosts Cal just after 8 p.m. over on ESPN. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Numbers are numbers, and numbers can indicate certain things, but they, not always tell the full story. And we know who Saquon is. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame player. Their offensive line, very talented as well. Done a great job, with the coaching that goes along there with Coach Stoutland, and then the offense overall, extremely talented on the perimeter. So it's a tough unit to stop. The run game in particular is real. I know the numbers say, and I'm not buying the numbers.
Not buying the numbers. Are you buying these numbers? The Jets, plus 13.5 at home against the Patriots, because I just did. Bulldog's not here. Half of our facility here is closed off, making it a longer walk to the kitchen during breaks and the bathroom. I'm just sitting here thinking about that game like, you know what? I am Mr. Jet at this radio station. I have made tons of excuses for them. Bulldog bet me. He is so, I think he is so used to me being somebody sort of like to make the bull case for the Jets that he and I have a bet that they will not make the playoffs before 2030. Now, it is almost 2026. I grant him that. 2030, almost half the conference makes it. Yeah, tell that to the Jets who haven't made it since 2010. He's using me a little bit here. Like, I'm the Jet guy every year. Oh, Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's getting worse for them. Like, these seasons are just completely blown up early. I saw a chart today that the AFC East, since we're going back to the earlier realignment, not just adding a 7th wild card or a 7th playoff team per conference, but back in when the league in 2002 went from 6 divisions to 8. So it's 8 4-team divisions, just as now, has been since 2002. The AFC East is the only division out of 8 where there have never been 2 wild card teams in a season. It's not happening this year. It will be 1, but it will not be 2. Whatever that's worth. Part of that is the Jets' fault. They're never good. New England, a clinching, sort of clinching, emotional road win, comeback win, making it a shorter week. I'm straining here, okay? I'm admitting it. Brady Cook, well, the guy's played a little bit now. He's getting more familiar with the offense. Nothing to lose. Sal's Aaron Glenn point. I'm getting 13.5 points. It's only it's Wednesday, right? Wednesday? It's only Wednesday. For now, I'm just taking the 13.5 points. Sam won't be impressed if that line gets to 14.5. Then it was too early for me to jump on this. Will it? New England all year has been, well, they're good, but are they great? And I would say to the Sunday game, and that's Tyler Huntley, putting the Ravens up 10 or 11 in the fourth. I've been saying about Baltimore, another team I traditionally crush on, they haven't looked good in forever. They had the one win in Cincinnati where the Bengals, I don't know what happened there, but it was a shutout. Otherwise, they've got nothing since when this year, Baltimore. So what does that win? Give me the Jets. Let's go. Imagine you sit down for kickoff. Wait, what am I saying? Nobody sits down in the stadium anymore. You go to that game, and it's a 4:25 game, so you're following the end of Patriots-Jets, and it's close. And here's Drake May, 17-16 Jets, 2-minute drive. Or better, 21-17, where they need the touchdown. Oh, everybody will be on their phone. Can he do it again? Crowd's all fired up, whatever's left of it in New York. A rare chance at a good day at the stadium. Last home game. Stranger things. I don't know. I'm maybe a little bit Christmas drunk already, but I'm with the Jets. Second division game, division rematch on the road. Oh, let's see New England go blow them out. Then I'll be impressed and probably bet against them again the next week. Let's go to Tim next. Hi, Tim.
Hey, Mike. How's it going? Yeah, you'll have to forgive me here. I'm rolling some meatballs for Christmas dinner tomorrow. Anyways, I was reflecting on the season, and I was just thinking about how I feel a little detached from this team in a way that I can't quite put my finger on. Where obviously, if they go all the way, I mean, I'm sure this will be. I will forget all this and I will be pulling for them, obviously. But it's just my heart was so in it, the 2021, 2020. And I don't know. I just feel kind of strange going into this postseason. And, part of that too is not just, at first I thought it was just personnel, but we have familiar faces back on the team. I love Trey and Dawkins and, there are tenured players on the team, but I think it's the style of football. I loved those teams in 2020 and 2021 because I felt like they were defining how football ought to be played, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the current version of this Bills, they've got good odds, and I'm a homer, and I'm going to root for them. But if they win, I don't know what that says about the sport, if that makes sense.
I'm not going to worry too much about that. What you'd want to, addressing the same last point, I think you can easily give them credit for being adaptable. And they've always prioritized defending the pass more than the run. They've consistently been that team. They continue to be that team. I guess that's a nice way of describing that they're not that good against the run, but still. And to have such a physical, run-oriented team like they do is to their credit. So it's not really that against the grain in terms of the league either at this point. They've kind of been leaders in this way, sort of ahead of the trend. So
that's true. Maybe I'm just bored with football, where the way it's being played right now.
I don't do well with meatballs. I don't do well with the shape. I did this for Thanksgiving, or not even that long ago, a week or two ago, and I'm not, I guess, careful enough or diligent enough with the portion size and just sort of the rolling. And when they come out of the oven, they taste good, but they're kind of misshapen all over the place.
So you don't do good with the making of, not
right.
Consuming. You're fine with.
Yeah, what you're doing.
Yeah. No. I'm 100% on board with you. This is horrible.
Well, Happy holidays, Tim. Merry Christmas. I don't want to say it's horrible. I like challenges. I've been doing these New York Times puzzles every day. Sort of when I wake up, first thing, the crossword takes a little bit more time. I usually get there, but the Wordle and strands and this one connections is, for me, the hardest. Like I sometimes don't see it. And it's because, well, maybe I don't know all the superhero movies. Or maybe it's because I didn't think one of the groupings would be, I don't want to give away today's, but names of rocks missing a vowel. Just like I sometimes get bogged down by these connections puzzle. But it's easily my favorite because of my having a problem with it. I blitz through all the word ones every time like it's nothing. But that connections kind of has my number. Like meatballs has my number. Not this mushroom tart I'm making for tomorrow, though. That I have its number. What am I talking about? I have a mushroom tart's number. Yeah, you want to see it? There it is. There's the number. Okay, I've had too much coffee. If that's not obvious, 803-0550 for your calls. Some time left for that. I'm going to get you Dave Tripoli, who joined me at 4 today, coming up at the top of the hour with his takes, and they're always spicy on the Eagles and even the Bills. So that's ahead. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. This is Mike Schopp on WGR. Christmas Eve. Time to check the NORAD update. The tracker. Really gives you an appreciation of how the amazing work Santa does. When you watch this NORAD tracker, it's just like in and out, you know? This guy, unbelievable every year. Never ceases to amaze. We're in Algeria. Hope I'm not spoiling anything because you were just about to go to your phone and see that he's in Algeria. Just amazing work. Obviously, a long time before he gets around to our parts. But, if you've been good, it'll happen. That's what I've been told. Eagles and Bills on Sunday, 4:25. Okay, well, maybe it's not. I know it isn't likely that New England loses the 1 o'clock game it has with the Jets, but it's possible. It's the season for optimism and dreaming, thinking about good things, right? 44.5 is the Bills-Eagles total. That seems low. I wonder, or there could be weather involved in that, but we know how that works. Not unless there's wind, probably, and I haven't bothered to look yet. I know it's late December in Orchard Park, though, so it's not going to be warm out. But I wonder if it's more of a reflection on the stakes than the teams. I mean, they can both, if New England does win its game, you still have the next week with the Patriots and the Dolphins to hope for. But I wonder if the betting market isn't reflecting some kind of a conservatively played game between the Eagles and the Bills. I mean, the Bills game in Cleveland only got to 43. But, man, that should have been higher. I mean, the way that game was tracking, that is surprising that it didn't even get to 50. So, I mean, this game, 44.5, the Bills have played shootouts. New England and Cincinnati before that. Philadelphia has played lower scoring games. So there's that. When these teams last played, it was a shootout, 37-34, maybe an overtime game in Philadelphia. The Bills have only beaten the Eagles once since the 90s. That was an early season game in Orchard Park where when Chan Gailey was still the coach of the Bills. He's the last Bills coach to beat him. Before that, it's Wade in against the first, I think, a rookie Andy Reid that year, 1999. So Phillies won 5 of the last 6, including its last visit here, which was only, still 6 years ago. It hasn't been that often, but 2011 is the last Bills win in the series. Philly 9-6 overall. We will dig deeper into the matchup, have more injury information and insight into the game come Friday. I'll be off tomorrow for Christmas, and we're going to wrap it up here for tonight. Coming up next, Dave Tripoli from the FFPC on the Eagles, the Bills, and the playoff picture on both sides of the ledger. I looked it up, by the way, since talking to Dave, and you'll hear our conversation maybe, but Seattle, the team he'd love to see the Eagles get as an Eagles fan, getting to the 6th seed is not far-fetched at all. 2 Niners wins makes it better than 50-50 that Seattle ends up as the 6th. So Dave will want to know that. And I've told him since this conversation we had earlier that you're about to hear. Merry Christmas to you. Thanks for being a part of our family today and every day here at WGR, and for so many years. It's really special to me and I think to everybody here. So enjoy your Christmas Eve, and I'll talk to you again on Friday. My interview with Dave Tripoli and then Sal Capacio coming up. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.